Guys, let's bring him in. He is the voice of the Detroit Lions and, of course, Fox 2 Sports Director Dan Miller joining us ahead of the Lions and Chiefs 8 days from today. Dan Miller, first of all, this is a totally lame question, but 8 days from today, aren't you just ready to go? How great is this?
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, you think about being there and they're going to raise their banner and you're playing the team that won the Super Bowl and all the pomp and circumstance. Every eye in the National Football League will be on you. I mean, it's an honor to play in that game. You'd like to be the home team in that game because that means you did something pretty special the year before. But no, I can't wait. You got to get to that because there's so much going on now with the roster churn and practice squad and everything that's going to happen. But, here in about 24 to 36 hours, it's going to be all Kansas City, and they're going to be into a somewhat normal week as they get ready for a Thursday night game. So, yeah, I mean, we've been talking about it for a long time. It's almost here, and I can't wait.
Hey, Dan, I was after yesterday, after 4 o'clock, we got off the air, and you hear a couple of little things coming across. They're going to release this guy. They're going to probably keep this guy. Then I'm waiting. Then I see the Steelers. They put out a whole thing. Here's our team. Here's the Rams. Here's the Eagles. I'm still waiting. Then at 6 o'clock, I'm still freaking waiting. And now, they get down into the 53. And now today, I am still waiting. There's 3 guys on the practice squad, maybe 4. Where's my team? What is this, Mission Impossible?
I just read Justin Rogers just tweeted something reminding everybody how this has worked in the past, that teams have until 4 o'clock for guys to clear waivers, and then they get their waiver guys assigned to them. Then you can put your guys on injured reserve. And then he said last year around 6 o'clock, the practice squad came out. So listen, if you are that hungry for the practice squad, you might have to wait about 2 hours and 55 minutes, but I think it's on the way.
Thanks, Dan.
Dan, you see the circumstances. You see the circumstances I have to work with, Dan. You see what I have to deal with. You see what I'm dealing with.
Brad Holmes, I'm sure, could answer that much better than I could. Look, I was looking for those lists yesterday too, but sometimes it just takes a while for it to come out.
Hey, Dan, you mentioned something. You talk about the Kansas City Chiefs last year or this past season. They did win the Super Bowl, and they will be hanging those banners. But guess what? There was a team that finished pretty strong in the Detroit Lions that was gifted the chance to play against Kansas City. How good do you feel our options are? Our chances are. And I say are. What happened to that? Now I'm all of a sudden a Lions fan. How good are our chances against Kansas City, especially with a Chris Jones who doesn't look like he's going to be there for game 1?
Well, yeah, that certainly doesn't hurt. He's a dominant football player, one of the best interior linemen in the entire league. So if he's not there, okay, that's cool. But no, look, I think this is a good team. The Lions are a good team. You have to go out there and play it. Kansas City is used to these big moments, bright lights, playing at home. They have the advantages in those regards. But I'm just Braylon, I want to see what this defense looks like. And you're going to get no better test than to play against, the guy who's been one of the best, if not the best quarterback in the league for the past, 5 or 6 years. So right off the bat, you go against Mahomes. You'll learn something about a new secondary, which I can't sit here and tell you how good it's going to be. I think that defensive line is going to look markedly different than it did last year. I can't tell you how good it's going to be. I think it should be better against the run. I can't tell you for certainty that it will, though. So, and your chances are you're going to have a much different look at linebacker if Jack Campbell's in there taking a bunch of snaps. So it's hard to say, here's what's going to happen, here's what they're going to be. I think I know. I think this defense should be a top half of the league defense, but they have to go out there and prove it because for the past, couple years under this regime, years under the Patricia regime, they were anything but that. So I got to see it.
Definitely everything but that. Dan, talk about a move like in terms of Emmanuel Mosley. Emmanuel Mosley now off PUP. He's activated. Talk about what that means for Brad Holmes and the Detroit Lions because you're talking about a team that finished 32nd against the pass last year, and now you got a guy that's coming off ACL and you activate him. That's got to be a good sign for the Detroit Lions.
Well, I think it is, and I think what it says is they didn't want him to miss the first 4 games. I don't think it says that he's going to be there for Kansas City, and at this point I'd kind of imagine that he won't be just because we haven't seen him out there at practice at all. So, but I think what they wanted to do was get him on the roster, make sure that he's available if he's good to go in week 2 against Seattle or week 3 or week 4, whatever it is. I think that was their idea behind activating him. And look, with Emmanuel Mosley, they're better. Without him, they're better. Because when you bring in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Brian Branch has been probably the find of training camp and the guy that has been the biggest surprise and biggest star. Not that people didn't think he was good, but to come on this quickly is pretty incredible. To get Tracy Walker back, I think Jerry Jacobs looks like he's taking a nice step and looks like he's healthy again and ready to roll out there at that other starting cornerback, Cam Sutton. And Kirby Joseph is a year older, a year wiser, and coming off a terrific rookie season. So with Mosley, like I said, they're better than maybe they are today. But I think today they're better than they were last year, and that's going to be interesting to watch.
And part of that, too, Dan, you mentioned Brian Branch, is obviously these rookies. Whether when the depth chart comes out or not, whether they're first string, second string, they're going to get significant time. Broderick Martin, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Brian Branch. That's 5 guys that look like they're ready to play day one.
Yeah, and I think they will. I think Martin is the guy that might, we'll see how much he plays. I think that there's some competition on that defensive line. But I think Branch has forced his way onto the field. I do think that things indicate he's going to start right now at the nickelback position, and that you're going to get at your nickel corner position, and that they're going to move CJ back to safety. And that's just a testament to how he's played. They haven't been able to keep him off the field. He's been too good. And you're going to get a heck of a test in week 1 against Mahomes, because believe me, Patrick Mahomes, as good as Brian Branch might be, is going to test him. He knows that he's not played in the National Football League before, so he'll test him in this game. But look, I think the other part of that equation, Ryan and Braylon, is this defensive line and playing the way that it played the second half of last year, and now having a healthy Romeo Okwara, a healthy James Pascal, a healthy guys that weren't there at 100% last year. James Houston for an entire season.
Julian
Aiden
Okwara,
Hutchinson
all
another
those
year.
guys, yeah.
Yeah, all these guys that have been there. And I have said before, I'll say it again, the guy I'm probably most intrigued by is Josh Pascal. Mm-hmm. Because this is a second-round pick who was a guy who made plays and could dominate at times at Kentucky. And they really were excited about him coming into his rookie season. He was never healthy last year, but he's healthy now. And I think he's got a chance to be a force for this team on the inside and on the outside, a versatile piece that you can use either place. I think he's kind of the guy that I'm keeping an eye on that could be a real difference maker on that defensive line.
And when you add a guy like a Josh Pascal, it feels like, an added first-round pick, essentially, when you're just bringing him on the roster. How much better does he make everybody next to him? How much better does a Josh Pascal make, an Isaiah Buggs or an Aiden Hutchinson? That's how this team gets going, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And seeing Levi Onwuzurike out there. And, finally he's healthy and able to play. And another second-round draft pick that they had high hopes for when they drafted him. I don't know what they're going to get out of him, but just seeing him out there with a chance to play and take snaps, and for us to be able to find out how good he is, I think is intriguing for this defensive line. So I think there's a lot of pieces kind of floating around out there with this defensive line. We just talked about guys coming back off of injury, Charles Harris and Okwara as well. So how does it all fit together? And then how do they all play together, I think is a huge question for this team, because everything they do up front makes everybody else better. And I think the possibilities are there that they can be pretty good.
Hey, Dan, as much love as the Lions are getting, probably only second to the Jets as far as national love goes, they are still sitting in Las Vegas at 9.5 wins. That number has not moved since the beginning of the year. And the spread against the Chiefs hasn't moved. It's still 6.5, even though Chris Jones is out. Does that tell you anything about what we're looking forward to on this team? Are we too much thinking they're going to win 14 games?
I think what it tells you is, you guys know how this works. It moves based on where people bet. And I think what it tells you is there's a lot of people out there that might believe in the Lions, but there's a lot of people who know the Lions' history, and they're saying, you got to show me, and they're betting the under. And as long as you have that being somewhat equal, then you know what? The casinos are going to live off the vig, and they're going to be fine. Yep. So I think what it tells you is, as much as there's people that are bullish on this team, there are people that are not buying in yet and saying, you got to show me, and I'll put my money on history saying the Detroit Lions aren't going to win. And you know what? That's on the Lions to change. I've talked about that a million times. You want to change that conversation? Win games. It's just that simple. You want people to forget about what's happened in the past? Win games. Now, the truth is, this team doesn't have anything to do with 2008. This team doesn't have anything to do with any of the disappointments that have had in the past. This team will carve out its own place in history, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever it ends up being. But you do carry that stigma of the teams that have come before you. And that's what it says to me about why a line like that is where it is or why it hasn't moved. That line will move based on how people bet, period.
Hey, Dan, I have a question about the offense. You know, I was a guy I'm looking at. I know that Jared Goff had a really good season last year, especially in that last 10-game stretch. You look at the numbers that they put up. You look at the touchdowns that he put up. You know, and watching going into this year, I'm like, I just yeah, and this is initial, by the way. I just don't see them being able to repeat that. I don't know if he can do those numbers again. Where's the other receiver? Where's the other guy? But, Dan, am I wrong? Because now I'm analyzing. I'm saying last year, Amon-Ra St. Brown missed some games. He was injured at times. DJ Chark wasn't there the whole season. They had to find wide receivers to fill the roles. DeAndre Swift, is he going to play this week? Is he going to be limited this week? As I'm looking, they were able to do all that last year with rotating wide receivers, with Jamal Williams coming in. Sometimes it's Craig Reynolds. Sometimes it's Josh Jackson. And to be that efficient with that much going on, I actually believe now that they could be better on offense this year. I'm starting to buy in. Am I wrong?
Well, the stability, Braylon, starts up front. The stability starts with that offensive line. That's the face of this team. That's who this team is built around.
Yeah.
Is that offensive line. They're healthier now than they were at any point last year. So the hope is that they can be better up front than they were a year ago. And they were pretty good. It's the best running game we've seen here since Barry was here. Yeah. So, no, I don't think it's crazy to think that they could be better, but I think they just have to go out and carve out an identity for this team. And I think the identity hopefully is the same. They're a team that can run the ball and control the ball on the ground. They're a team that can protect their quarterback, and they're a team that takes care of the football. If you do those things, you're going to be effective because I think the big plays will come. I think the big plays with Amon-Ra will come. The big plays with Gibbs will come. Laporta's going to be a player. Khalif Raymond had a terrific season last year. I think, Marvin being back, I think he'll play a role as a veteran on this team. I think they have different options. I agree with you. I do kind of look at that receiving core, and I feel like, man, there's just like one piece that's missing. There's one piece that you wish they kind of had. But look, you know this as well as anybody. Teams aren't perfect. You find a way to work with what you got, and their way to work with that might be Gibbs is more involved in the slot, working outside. Laporta takes on a larger role than we had in the tight ends last year. Good in the red zone, maybe not huge overall, but a guy that might be a high-volume pass catcher, and I think that would make a difference for this team.
Yeah, one of the small things I'll just follow up with, I'm intrigued and I'm happy about Marvin Jones Sr. I think one thing we said, he's consistent. Marvin Jones Sr. is going to show up. He's going to play you 16 to 17 games. He's going to give you 880 yards. Last year, DJ Chark was inconsistent. So that's the one thing I do like this year. I like Marvin Jones. You can count on him, I think.
Hey, Dan, you talk about... Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Just let me say this. The one thing about Marvin that was so apparent in training camp that he has been great at since the day he walked in the door here, and I assume he probably was in Cincinnati too, you throw a 50-50 ball up there, he's going to find it. Yeah. I mean, he is just so good when it comes to contested catches. And if there's anything training camp showed me, that at the age of 33, and I think I saw again, I think I'll reference Justin here, I think I saw yesterday, outside of the special teams guy with New England, whose name escapes me.
Number 15,
he's the oldest
wide
receiver.
Yeah.
He's the oldest wide receiver to make a roster this year.
Wow.
So, but, I mean, he looks great. Marvin and I have talked many times. His weight has remained the same for like the last 12 years. It hasn't changed a pound.
That's true.
Just like me.
So I think he's ready to go and do, just like you.
Matthew Slater.
I think he's ready to I think he's ready to do whatever's asked of him. I don't think he'll be in the same role, obviously, that he was the first 5 years he was here, but he'll have a role.
Hey, Dan, final thing from me. You mentioned just protecting the football, and it just seems so simple. The more things change, the more things stay the same. Jared Goff in the first 7 games last year, 6 interceptions. Jared Goff in the last 10 games last year, 1 interception, 8 wins. You know, I mean, it just seems so simple. protect the football, win the turnover battle, and win games. Isn't that simple?
Well, it's the biggest indicator of winning and losing in the NFL is a turnover battle. I mean, you win that battle, statistics say your chances of winning go up. You win it by 1, it goes up. You win it by 2, it goes up significantly. If you win it by 3, it's overwhelming that your chances of winning are there. And you know what? Here's the key to that, though. And I asked Mark Brunell about that during the offseason. He did it without getting too conservative. In other words, yes, he dialed down the interceptions, but he didn't dial down the production. And you can tell a quarterback don't do it anymore, and they're going to kind of just take the easy throw every time. He was still taking chances. He was just taking the right chances. And I think that's huge for this team. The difference between 1-6 and 8-2, guys, was about not turning the ball over, taking the ball away on defense, and then the fact that they stopped committing a lot of the turnovers that were just making life easy for the opponents. So, I mean, some things in this game are complicated, some aren't. And there's some mistakes that you can make to beat yourself that just you can't live with in the NFL. Turnovers and penalties are right there.
In those last 10 games, 18 touchdowns, 1 interception. Just an incredible run, incredible quarterback play. Dan Miller, enjoy the week of preparation. I know it's kind of a crazy week for you with a Thursday game and a road opener, so enjoy it. And thanks so much for chatting with us here. We'll talk to you again maybe in a couple of weeks here.
Thanks, Dan.
You got it. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Dan Miller, everybody.